Hello and welcome to Booktubeathon 2017 Day 5. The challenge for today is called the Class Reading List Challenge. So basically you just have to come up with a class that you've always wanted to take and then make a reading list for this class. When I first heard that you had to make a reading list for a class, I really wanted to do something about Russian literature because I'm super interested in that, but then I thought I haven't really read much Russian literature and I wouldn't know enough to make a whole book list, but also there's the added challenge that you have to try and fit in something from your TBR list, and of course I don't have any Russian literature on my TBR list, so I decided to change my mind. The class I chose would be a sociology class looking at teenagers over time and how people view teenagers and how teenagers view the world and things like that, because I think that's really interesting. Yes. So the first book that I chose is The Manifesto on How to Be Interesting by Hollyborn. This is a really good book. It's about a girl who is pretty unpopular and a little bit of a loner and really only has one friend, and she gets told that she should probably start branching out and stop being such a loner, and chaos ensues. The second book I chose is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. I think this book is really interesting and it's really well written, and the movie is absolutely amazing, but I think it's also an interesting look at teenage girls specifically, and also the romanticization of teenage girls, which in this book is seen by the neighbours who kind of live across from them and observe them and become obsessed with them. And I just think it's a really interesting look at teenage life, especially with strict parenting, which definitely happens in this book. The third book I chose is an Australian book which I always love, and that is Puberty Blues by Gabrielle Carey and Kathy Lett, I think. This is, again, an amazing TV show, an amazing movie, and an amazing book. This is based on the true lives of the two authors, and it's just a really good look at what it is like to be a teenager, and it's really honest. And when it came out, it got a lot of kind of criticism for being so honest, because it does look a lot at kind of sex and drinking and drugs and all these other problems that occur in the book that I'm not really going to say and spoil, but I think it's definitely a good honest look at teenage life, especially in Sydney at the time that this book was written. Another Australian book I have, which is the one from my TBR list, is Black Rock by Nick Enright. This is also Australian, except instead it's set in Melbourne, where I'm from, which is super cool. So I don't know that much about this book. All I know is that there is a group of teenagers, and then a young girl dies after being sexually assaulted. That's what it says on the back. I still haven't read it. I'm hoping to get through it today. But it says it mainly focuses on the human impulse of violence, but I think because most of the characters in this book are teenagers, it would be a really good look at teenage life as well, especially kind of not super contemporary, but not as old as my final choice, which is Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. I know this is an interesting one, but I think it's definitely a good choice because Juliet is so young and Romeo is still a teenager, but he's quite a bit older than her, which is always concerning. But I think in the same way that The Virgin Suicides looks at kind of the romanticization of teenage girls as well, I think this is definitely an important one, and kind of people use it to make fun of teenage love at the moment, but I think it's definitely important, and that idea needs to be looked at further, if that makes any sense, because people seem to discredit romance among young people, so I think that's still an important thing. Plus it's amazing, and I think more people should be reading Shakespeare anyway. So that is my class reading list for my sociology class on teenagers. I hope you enjoy, and tell me down in the comments if you've read any of these and what you thought about them. Thank you, bye, and happy reading.